Real quick, I did a whole video and then I realized I didn't actually say anything about the actual movie. So what you're going to watch in a moment is me break down the psychological reasons why we might gravitate towards traumatic films. Should we watch them? Should we not watch them? The movie that inspired this conversation was the movie Straw by Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry is a producer, and he was the one who brought it to life in film and all of the things. It stars Taraji P. Henson. I'm not going to go through the cast because I'll be to mess somebody up. Good. Overall, I would give the movie 7 out of 10. It has some typical tropey things going on. I'm not going to spoil it. I think, again, more information to follow, but I wanted to give that quick 50-second introduction to why I started the video in the first place. So yes, continue watching. I'm going to do all my editing stuff so that you can see why we might gravitate towards those types of films, why we should, maybe why we shouldn't. Keep watching. Hey guys, I want to talk a little bit about the movie Straw because there are so many varying opinions about whether it's good for people to watch it, whether it's bad for people to watch it. And so I wanted to take a moment to talk about it psychologically for a second. So there are some potential benefits to watching certain things on film that relate to or emulate art depicting life, difficult situations, hard times, struggle, trauma, war, all of these things that do really happen in life that are being depicted. There are some potential benefits. So if they are used mindfully, it can really help to illuminate certain things about people's patterns, behaviors, their lives. So it can be used in a positive manner. I know when I worked in substance abuse treatment, we had movie therapy because sometimes it is easier for someone to look at something, right, and process it rather than them processing it themselves. So they can see the behavior, the patterns in someone else on film that they might be missing in real life. So one of the reasons we do that is for emotional catharsis. So watching characters navigate trauma can really help people identify and release emotions they may struggle to access on a normal or everyday basis. So I can see you going through it, I can watch you go through it, and then I can resonate with that feeling or emotion. And there are mirror neurons in the brain that respond during emotional scenes. So if you are the type of person that doesn't ever cry, but then you cry at the really sad scene of the movie or really emotional scene on a movie or a weighted scene in a movie, that can help you with empathy and processing. And so, for example, if you're a person who was taught not to cry or doesn't cry often, a trauma survivor, for example, could cry at that scene, get that emotional release, have that resonate with them, and then process it, unlocking that suppressed emotion because they've avoided it in their real everyday life, right? So you can use films like this for emotional catharsis. You can also use films like this for narrative validation, right? So seeing trauma represented in media can validate somebody's personal experience. Again, like, okay, like the Me Too, like, oh, okay, we can do this happens, this is real, this is valid, this is a way to look at my personal experience and not feel isolated, alone, or encapsulated in a box, because this does happen in real life to real people, especially for those populations of people that have been marginalized or oppressed or pushed to the side, right, or pushed to the edges of society. That can really allow them to see their pain not being ignored or minimized, right? It can affirm that statement of I'm not alone, someone understands what I've been going through, somebody sees me, somebody is validating my experience, right? Particularly, this can be relevant for people of color, right, who often experience cultural gaslighting. That's not a thing, that really doesn't happen. Things like the movie When They See Us, right? It validates the systemic injustice of the things that are happening. So that is another potential benefit. Number 3, a sense of agency through exposure, right? So sometimes that can decrease controlled exposure. So it's almost like Desensitization, right? Controlled exposure to distressing content can sometimes decrease the emotional reactivity over time. So that's in a way similar to exposure therapy. And I will say something about exposure therapy because I am a certified prolonged exposure treatment provider. Exposure therapy does work, but it is very intentional about how you're exposed, the frequency, the rate, what it looks like when exposure is happening, how you're processing the exposure after. You can't just do exposure therapy on your own. And so that's the caveat, the warning, the quotation marks around that. So it is similar to exposure therapy, but exposure therapy is done in a very particular, systematic, intentional way. So you want to be mindful of that. You need to be guided by a professional, a therapist, preferably someone who's trained in exposure therapy to help with that process. I would not suggest doing that on your own. Now, those are all those potential benefits. Like I said, emotional catharsis, narrative validation, sense of agency through exposure, potential benefits, very good things. Now, potential harms, difficulties, challenges that could come with this, especially if it's without support or without awareness. Number one would be re-traumatization, right? Which is the one everybody's talking about. Is this trauma, I don't even want to say the word. Is this a way to re-traumatize the person? Media that mimics or closely mirrors a person's lived trauma, sexual assault, can I say that? SA, police brutality, domestic violence, all of that can reignite the body's stress response. And so when that happens, you find yourself in the midst of trauma. You find yourself re-injuring that part of your body. So the amygdala, or the emotion center of the brain, may register scenes that you're watching in a movie as current, real, triggering, panic, hypervigilance, right? Or dissociation. So you might experience emotional flooding, sleep disturbances, intrusive flashbacks when you are re-traumatized, where you are consuming media that is re-traumatizing you. So that's number one. You have to be careful of re-traumatization. Number two, vicarious trauma and compassion fatigue. So repeated exposure to another person's individual trauma, even fictionalized, even though it's not real and not in front of you, right, can be problematic. It can compound existing trauma or lead to emotional numbing. Especially this is harmful for Black and Indigenous people of color, right? Watching real or dramatized violence against their own communities can be particularly disproportionately not good for us. So it's especially harmful for certain populations of people. All right, number three, over-identification of or with pain. So some trauma survivors may unintentionally anchor themselves to painful narratives, which is something that I was saying previously, that you subconsciously can adopt a trauma identity, meaning I no longer can see any other way to operate. This is my narrative. This is how I operate. This is how I function. And there is no hope. There is no way to get out of this. There's no exit ramp. There's no loop. There's no way to get out of this trauma cycle. And that can be particularly problematic. So instead of moving toward healing, you revisit those stories that reinforce that you are stuck. The idea that you can't move. The idea that there is no way out, right? And so that can be problematic. Does that distract from or take away from the fact that, right, this is somebody's real life struggle? No, it does not. But again, if you over identify with pain, you begin to believe that pain is your only mechanism, verification that you're alive. I have to be in pain. You then seek that as opposed to seeking the opposite of that. So now, having said three good, three potentially bad things, there are considerations for watching certain types of media. Questions to ask yourself: am I watching this to heal myself or to punish myself? Because sometimes subconsciously trauma survivors can seek pain as a form of reenactment or earning healing. I have to keep going through this to earn some sense of healing. So are you watching this to heal or to harm? Are you watching this to punish yourself? Or are you watching this to assist or help yourself? You also want to ask yourself, do I feel grounded before or after watching, right? So if your nervous system feels heightened, hijacked, anxiety, if you feel numb, if you feel like you're about to shut down, it might be a signal that this type of media is not something you're ready to consume at this particular moment. Another question to ask: are you alone while you're watching or processing this? So you might want to watch movies that are particularly triggering for you, if you're going to watch them, with someone who's trusted, so that you can debrief, so you can have a conversation about it afterwards. Like I said, I've done this in therapeutic settings where we're discussing the things that we saw as a way to manage all of those things that may have been pressed down or dissociated with for the individual. So I'm not saying you can't, but if you're going to do it, just be mindful and just be intentional. And lastly, is the center, right? Is this story narrative centered around hope, resilience, or only suffering? So I said this on a live. Is there any other, is there opportunity for hope? Is there opportunity for growth? Is there opportunity for change? Even in the film that you are watching, even in the depiction that you are being seen. Because if there's no redemption, reconciliation, healing, hope, if there's nothing there and we're just left with the emptiness of the trauma and there's no conversation after, that can be problematic, right? If you're watching something that shows redemption, recovery, resilience, a sense of moving forward or advancing, I'm not saying it has to have a happy ending, but can we have a little hope, little glimmer of sunshine? Or is it leading to further conversations about that? That is important to note. So I would say, if you are trying to process trauma, right, limit passive consumption of trauma-heavy content. Choose when, why, and how you engage, and how long you engage, right? There are certain things we shan't be binge watching all the time, right? If you're going to watch something heavy, watch something light too, so that you can limit your passive consumption of that. You want to balance the exposure with joy, rest, representations of hope and resilience and moving forward, advancement, thriving, not just surviving. Because what you see, you will begin to replicate, whether it is intentional or unintentional. And then if you're opt into, right, some form of healing centered media, use content in a therapeutic context. If you're watching shows, it's a lot. I'm not going to name those shows because I don't want the people to get me. But there are a lot of shows that are showing the bad side. Also, show the good side. Talk about the good side. Talk about people that have come out of, not just stayed in. All right. And sometimes, again, let's go back. Watching this can be healing. It can be affirming. It can be intentional. It can support conversations about mental health, about trauma, about recovery, about resilience. It can do all of these good things. But if you are actively recovering from traumatic experiences, there are some considerations that you might make. I have listed them. Hopefully, there is some hope at the end of the tunnel. And if you're going to consume such media, you do what you want to do. Just use wisdom as you do it. Hopefully this content was helpful for you. Please like and subscribe if you feel so led. And I'm going to say it because I always say it. While I am a licensed professional, I might not be your licensed professional. So please use this information as education and reach out to a licensed mental health professional near you for individualized treatment and care. See you guys in the next video.